Hey, everybody. Some of you are familiar faces to me, and some of you I'm just meeting for the first time. So I'm just going to tell you just a little bit about myself. My name is Dana Sardano. I am a retired educator. My background is in traditional education for about 20 plus years. And in 2015, I picked up a paintbrush for the first time since my childhood, and my whole world turned upside down. We were talking about joy earlier, and I recognized this joy and I followed it, and it took me to so many places. I wound up leaving my cushy, stable job. I wound up opening an art gallery, becoming an author, co-hosting a podcast, co-founding a businesses, and doing all these wonderful creative things based on the fact that I said yes to my creativity and followed the joy. One of the things that I do, other than facilitating workshops, is I work with people one-on-one. And my favorite, I guess we'll call it a tool that I like to work with assisting people with personal empowerment, spiritual development, is your rainbow colored roadmap. But before we get started, before I get into it, I want everybody to take out a piece of paper and a pen or a notebook if you've got. You're welcome to, drop it in the chat, but I think that this is a personal thing, so I would rather you keep it to yourself. Okay, so I'm going to ask you three questions, or I'm going to ask you to ask yourself three questions and just quickly jot down the answer. The first question I want you to ask yourself is, what is one thing that brings me discontentment? What is one thing in my life right now that brings me discontentment? The second question I want you to ask yourself is, what is my belief around this? So just to give you a hypothetical example, I don't know how hypothetical, but you'll see, is, what brings me discontentment? I can't have a conversation with my husband without fighting. We have trouble with our communication. So what is my belief around it? Well, the person that I love doesn't hear me. My beliefs, my opinions aren't valued. I have to be aggressive or work harder to get somebody to listen to me, to see me, to value me. So the third question I want you to ask yourself is, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? I want this son of a bitch to listen to me. No, I'm just kidding. What do I want? I want to be seen, heard, valued. I want to be appreciated for my opinions and my ideas. I want to be able to communicate peacefully and harmoniously. So take a second and just write that down. Okay, so here's the thing. And those of you who are in the room with me right now, I'm pretty sure you guys have a handle on this, but many people don't understand is that our exterior world is a direct reflection of the health and wellness and balance of our interior world. When we have imbalances or irrational beliefs within our interior world, and when I say irrational beliefs, I don't mean like, you're running around crazy. I mean, they're not based in logic. So when you have irrational beliefs about yourself and the world around you, and you have imbalances that are created by those irrational beliefs, the circumstances in your exterior world reflect that. What's going on at work, your relationship with your spouse, your ungrateful kids, or your relationship with your body, even whatever it is, it's reflected, it's based in your interior world. So what do we do about that? How do we fix, how do we adjust our exterior world? Well, we rebalance our interior world, excuse me. And so I like to do this in three simple steps, but I like to do this in a couple of different steps because it really is a daunting process. Like, think about it. It's like, oh my God, my world is falling apart. What do I do? Well, how do you eat an elephant? One piece at a time. So the first thing that's in your best interest is identifying the root cause, the root of your belief. Then identify the imbalances that are created based on that belief. Because I have one irrational belief, it creates all sorts of patterns throughout my life. I actually quoted this in something that I had written. I mentioned one irrational belief that I had and 10 patterns that kept repeating throughout my life based on that one belief. So identify the root of the belief, identify the imbalances based on that belief, and then reconcile the imbalances. So how do you do that, right? So I like to refer to my rainbow colored roadmap. So how many of you are familiar with the chakra system? So on a scale from like 1 to 10, 1 being like, what the fuck is a chakra? And 10 being, oh my God, I just did my full moon ritual and I have my crystals and I'm sitting here with my sound bowls right now. So between 1 and 10, where are you? Throw it in the chat if you don't mind. Oh, we got a 9. What else we got? A 7. All right. I figured as much. I eyeballed this crew, and when we got in here, 5. All right. So everybody's got a pretty good sense of the chakra system. All right. So I'm going to give a really brief tutorial because of our general understanding. But the chakras, as you guys know, are our energy centers. There are 7 of them within our body. I always joke from the rooter to the tutor, but essentially from our root chakra up through our crown chakra. And I like to look at the practicality of the chakras. We could talk meditation till we're blue in the face. We could talk, about Reiki and crystals and all that. But essentially, the age of resonance of our chakras as we develop as human beings, and I'll explain this in a second, it directly corresponds with our development. So I could talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, or the development in the brain that goes from our survival all the way through our executive functioning. It's all the same thing. I'm just putting my own stink on it. But essentially, when we develop, we have our first 3 chakras in our formative years, essentially, and they are our foundation for everything. So our root chakra, our sacral chakra, and our solar plexus chakra are our foundational chakras. The greatest age of resonance of the root chakra, it's represented in red, by the way, but the greatest age of resonance of the root chakra is between 0 and 7 years old. And depending what our implicit conditioning or explicit conditioning, if we've had trauma, if we've had, just emotional situations that have not been completely reconciled or digested or integrated, we could have imbalances in this chakra. The root chakra represents your feelings of safety, security, being grounded, your physicality. So when it's in balance, when it's balanced, you feel safe and strong and grounded and, great in your body. And when it's imbalance, you may have irrational fears. You may be insecure. You may lack groundedness. And just to give you a specific example, because Angela DeMarco, who is here today, she's very, very open about sharing this. In Angela's years from 0 to 7, she had changed residences probably about 7 times, and her mother was married about 3 times by the time she was 8. There was no sense of grounding. So her formative years were built on that lack of grounding, and it reflected in irrational fears. It reflected in an ability to stay centered and balanced. And so now our second stage of development, which is our sacral chakra, represented in orange and located in your special place, in your reproductive area. And the age of resonance is from 7 to 14. And 7 to 14 is all your pre-adolescence, adolescence. And what's represented with the sacral chakra is your sense of creativity, and not just drawing a picture or singing a song. You're understanding that you are the creator of your life experience. It represents your zest for life. It represents your sensuality, sexuality, sense of intimacy. It represents all of these things about really enjoying the sensations of life and being free of guilt and having pleasure. Now, when it's imbalanced, because either you're building on a faulty root chakra, or you may have had trauma in your sacral chakra, you tend to be a little about life, maybe even fall into depression. You carry a lot of guilt about enjoying things, about really enjoying the pleasures of life. You may lack intimacy. You may lack sex drive. You may have a hyperactive sex drive because you've learned to use sex as a weapon. So when your sacral chakra is imbalanced, now it's part of the basis. Now that's 0 to 14. Your root and your sacral are those are your formative years. After 14, I'm always like, I always joke, it's a God's hands. You know what I mean? So during my sacral chakra years, I had some serious trauma around the age of 12. And what I learned, remember, this is about our beliefs that we attach to our experiences. And through my experience, the belief I attached to it was life is hard. I am strong, but I will overcome. So now I go into my solar plexus years, 14 to 21, when we're, changing our hair color, changing our significant others, changing how many, the different things we want to do with our lives. We're really trying to figure out our sense of identity. The solar plexus located in your solar plexus, right? In your belly. It is represented in yellow, and it's really your place of power. It's your place of like, I am, knowing who you are, having confidence in that. It's your sense of worthiness. It's your sense of feeling like you are enough. So now I go into my solar plexus, into all those formative years, thinking I have to overcome every obstacle. So what do? I create all these patterns in my life that are hard because life is hard. I am strong. I will overcome. And my identity starts to become about being a badass. I'm Dana, I'm Italian, from Jersey, I'm a badass, I'm strong, I will overcome. And it becomes that. And we all do this. And when we're not paying attention, we take a belief through these foundational years, 0 to 14 especially, but then up through 21. And then we're 50 years old, 53, going, I am strong. Life is hard. I will overcome, if we're not revisiting these beliefs. So here's what happens. You have these, how am I doing on time, folks? Ooh, I better talk fast. So you have these 3 foundational chakras through your formative years. And then your upper chakras all respond to these formative years. So I'm going to go quickly here. Your heart chakra, green, to love without condition, without expectation, without judgment. Compassion, gratitude, right? But if I'm living in fear, if I lack worthiness, if I'm insecure, if I have anxiety, then I'm not going to love to my fullest potential. Your throat chakra, it's represented in blue. Your authenticity, your ability to live in your truth, your ability to speak and be yourself and communicate through an open heart. But if my heart is closed because of the damage of the previous chakras, my throat chakra is going to suffer. I'm going to lack authenticity and not even realize it. Your third eye chakra, represented in indigo or purple. Your third eye chakra is about your intuition and about your sense of imagination, but it's also about parts to the whole, parts to a whole. It's about your vision, your discernment, you're seeing the big picture. And without, again, broken record here, the gunk of the lower chakras, you're not going to have that clarity. And your crown chakra, which is represented in like a lavender or a white, that is the energy center that is connected to all things, to oneness, to your ability to love regardless, have love in your heart regardless of what's going on in the world around you, to have peace in a sea of chaos. Again, blah, 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 previous chakras, that's going to be in the shitter too, right? So what I want to discuss today is when we have an understanding that each of these stages, each of these areas all come with their own aspects. We all as individuals are an amalgamation of all these different aspects of all of our conditioning, all our beliefs, all our experiences. But when we can look at where we went wrong, right? But where the imbalance was created, and then look at each aspect and ask ourselves questions. Am I confident? Do I have false bravado? Do I suffer from anxiety? I wonder where that comes from. Let me go take a look. We could bring it into balance, and then their exterior world reflects our interior world. And it truly, truly is a beautiful thing, because once we realize that we are the creators of our reality, everything changes. And before I close, I just want to share one more thing with you. I created a deck of cards with a dear friend of mine. They're called the Soul Traveler Cards of Empowerment. They are adorned with my artwork. And in the back, these beautiful channeled messages from my dear friend, Anne-Marie Scorti. I pulled a card this morning for this very occasion. That's Rosie, by the way. You can do it, okay? The message is your power. You are connected to universal creative energy. Once you accept this truth, you understand your creative power, for it cannot be otherwise. You are the creator of your life by the nature of the energy of who you are. The true understanding of your power is transformational. For when you can accept that you are indeed the creator of your life, you can no longer feel like a victim to forces outside your control. If you are the creator, then you create all, even that which is unpleasant. It is for you to understand that as you think, so you create. Realize your thoughts. This is key. The intentional transformation of your life comes through this realization. Your power. Thank you for listening.